Chalk up another victory for Ubisoft against Vivendi as they conducted their annual Stockholder meeting, and basically there were expectations that the multimedia conglomerate Vivendi, which has been growing quite bold in their attempts to wrestle away control of Ubisoft from its founders, might attempt a corporate coup. Now, of course, I've spoken about this many times in a few videos, how Ubisoft have no desire at all for Vivendi to have controlling stock of them, and they have also expressed concerns about hostile takeover, and also just said that, look, they want to remain independent, and I have pretty much agreed with them. You know, Ubisoft have definitely kind of stumbled in recent years. They're not quite the company I used to know and love. You know, the guys who brought out Sands of Time and Beyond Good and Evil and Rayman and all this, and Assassin's Creed 2, but they are still capable of making great games and still do make great games, and them under the control of Vivendi is not really something that I care to see. I want to see them improve as a company, and obviously they feel that this is not best for them under the control of Vivendi, given how much they're fighting it. Now basically Vivendi have already said publicly that they're trying to get its own members on Ubisoft's board and gain some say into the way the company is run, as well as of course buying stocks in the company, but they didn't propose any resolutions before or during the meeting. Instead, however, Yves Guillemot and Gerard Guillemot were both re-elected to the board, and two new members were elected as well. The two new members replaced one outgoing member and added another independent member to the board. This basically means that the increase to 10 board members shifted the makeup of the board to 5 founding and 5 independent members. Now, as I've discussed in all the previous videos about this particular topic, Vivendi does have a bit of a history when it comes to wresting control away from company founders through creeping methods, such as, say, buying stock until they own a controlling stake, getting their members on the board, and that sort of thing. You know, methods that Vivendi have used in the past is, again, gaining influence through board members, either through placing their own or, of course, you know, influencing people already on the board. And this is instead of the more direct method which they could still employ, which, of course, is a hostile takeover. Now, while it's definitely a good thing that Vivendi did not manage to get its own people on the board during the meeting, that doesn't mean they're going to give up. This doesn't mean the battle is over. It's definitely a victory for Ubisoft, but this basically means that Vivendi are probably going to have to change their methods, as of course their current one just isn't working. This increase to 10 board members means that the makeup of the board has shifted to 5 founding and 5 independent members. Now, as I've discussed many times now, Vivendi do have a bit of a history of doing this by trying to wrestle away control of a company away from its founders by, say, for example, gaining influence through board members, by placing their own members on the board or what have you. Or, of course, by influencing people already on the board, buying stocks and that sort of thing. And while Vivendi didn't manage to get its own people on the board during this meeting, that doesn't mean that Ubisoft has won completely. This was still a victory for the company, but it just means that Vivendi are likely to change their methods. Now, because the next chance to vote in or out members isn't until next year, Vivendi could try and influence some people, as I already said. But what's more likely, according to company insiders, is that they now will switch to that more direct route of a hostile takeover. I have a bit of a statement here from a Ubisoft spokesperson who spoke to Polygon, and they said, quote, "During our annual general meeting, Ubisoft shareholders expressed massive support for Ubisoft's strategy and management. We remain focused on the execution of our strategic roadmap, which has already proven successful and which we are confident will continue to deliver great results and value for all of Ubisoft's stakeholders. We are also very happy to welcome 2 new independent directors, Frédéric Dame and Florent Navaner, who will bring their expertise and know-how to Ubisoft's board." Now, of course, I spoke in a previous video about how Ubisoft have purchased another 3.5% of the company, which is on top of the 9% of the company the family already owned, and 15% of the voting rights, according to a report from Bloomberg. Now, this is versus the 23% stake in the company that Vivendi has. Now, it is important to remember that under French law, the amount of stock a personal company can hold is up to 30%. If they go past this, they are obliged to launch a public offer on the company, which means that Vivendi can't increase too much unless they do want to go for the more direct method. It is important to remember that Vivendi have already taken control of Gameloft away from the Guillemot family after just buying 29% of the shares. So while they're definitely going to be fighting harder for Ubisoft, Vivendi have already succeeded in taking one thing away from the Guillemot brothers. Now, of course, Ubisoft aren't in this alone. They have been seeking help in Vivendi's attempts to buy out their company, and the government of Quebec has already offered assistance after an informal inquiry, and there are other things, of course, that they could be doing. For example, they are seeking help from other publishers and other people in the industry, so they're definitely not facing this alone, and given Vivendi's history of doing this, and things generally kind of not really working out too well, given that, of course, Activision Blizzard finally bought themselves out of Vivendi's clutches and not too long ago, they're probably going to find support quite there for them indeed. So, a victory for Ubisoft, but it does mean it may signal Vivendi to just go for the throat, which means we might be having a very different talk in a little while. Hopefully not. As I said, as much as Ubisoft have kind of fallen down recently, I want them to remain independent. I want them to keep coming up with ideas, and I want them to keep producing great games, because despite those failings, they do still put out some great games. So, with all that said, thank you very much for watching. Your support is highly appreciated as always, and I'll see you next time.